Hey there, people of the interwebs. My name is Brandon Noel, and this is that drawing show thing that I do. Each week I do a sketch cover. This is FlatFoot McGee, my own book. Right now my website is down for repair. But hopefully by the time you're watching this, you'll be able to buy this book from destinycomics.com. If you're unfamiliar with FlatFoot McGee, it is a noir detective series set in a Looney Tunes-esque cartoon-ish world. I do the rough pencils in non-photo blue, and then go in with ink and paint and all that fun stuff later. Years of doing, these kinds of illustration stuff on YouTube and with the camera, it's really hard to see the pencils. So I usually do that off camera and then just work on the inks and stuff. This is a real fun book that I love drawing. It's out of the norm. It's not something you see every day. And being and doing that, this is kind of an, well, not kind of, but being an indie book, I get to do whatever I want with the art, and I get to have a lot of fun. I absolutely love noir, and getting to marry that with like Looney Tunes and classic animation is just a blast. Although I know, because the fights, I tend to just think fisty fist, stuff like that. But I know in the future I got to really crank up the Looney Tune, anvils and that kind of action. But it's everything. As all books, all comics, all things, they grow as they go on. When I started the book, there was no duck comic book content. All that stuff had kind of died. And since because the first time I did a short for FlatFoot McGee was in 2009. Since then, Disney's brought back DuckTales. Marvel, it's come and gone, but had a version of Howard the Duck where he was a detective. which I'm glad it didn't last, because then it looks like I'm copying Marvel. But I was like, no, Howard the Duck was not a detective when I started this. In fact, Howard the Duck was long gone to the Image universe. For those of you who don't know, it's one of the coolest messed up crossover storylines in all of comics. But Steve Gerber was working on Destroyer Duck. The creator Howard the Duck, not happy. Went to court. I can spend all day talking about Steve Gerber and his fight with Disney and Marvel and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, he did his own independent book called Destroyer Duck, which Jack Kirby used to draw. I love Destroyer Duck. I actually collect Destroyer Duck. And so what happened was they decided to do, or not decided, but they did, the editor of Howard the Duck at the time, this is years after the lawsuits and all that, decided to do a low-key crossover between Savage Dragon and Howard the Duck. And it's basically like the books would take place at the same place at the same time, but you wouldn't see an actual crossover. You'd actually have to buy both issues to be like, hey, wait a minute. And at one point they cross the same area in a darkened, situation. But the Savage Dragon story came out later. So when the lights went out, Savage and Destroyer Duck kidnapped Howard the Duck, or grabbed Howard the Duck, and put him in witness protection program, and where he dyed his hair green. One of the reasons why FlatFoot McGee is green, honestly, because of that. I always like that, oh well, Howard the Duck is he's alive and well, the original. He's just living in the Image universe somewhere. And witness protection as a green duck. And the Howard the Duck that is in the Marvel comics is a clone, as we all know. So I always like that. Although honestly, my duck, FlatFoot McGee, is more of a Dick Tracy clone than anything. In fact, again, there was no Dick Tracy content out there, so I was like, all right, I'm in the cleared as far as playing with this kind of stuff. And then, I'm working on FlatFoot McGee, and is it Dynamite or Boom or somebody announces, oh, we're going to be relaunching Dick Tracy, and he's going to be Asian, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. And I'm like, all right, Dick Tracy's back. Cool. It's not like I'm trying to fill a vacancy that, anyway. So what ended up happening is, as far as I know, it's been a while since I've read the article, but the Dick Tracy rights and licensing are still in debate as far as who owns what, and so they've got a cease and desist, even though that they had done the licensing for a Dick Tracy book. And it's a shame, because I think you really could do a good Dick Tracy book today. But that's just, the way things are in comics. Sometimes you just licensing. I'm of the mindset of okay, Looney Tunes. This is the classic Looney Tunes. Looney Tunes hasn't been on basic cable in almost 20 years now. And every once in a while somebody will write some stupid article saying, well, it's because, you know, they're too violent or whatever. It's like, no. What happened was the only network that was airing classic Looney Tunes was Cartoon Network. And the licensing came up for agreement. Warner Brothers raised the licensing, said, no, we think Looney Tunes is worth this and you should be paying us X to air Looney Tunes cartoons. And Cartoon Network disagreed and said, well, no, we're not going to, you know, okay, we just disagree with how much you think Looney Tunes is worth. And so what ends up happening is, you know, they go separate ways. Well, in the meantime, unfortunately, that means no one's airing Looney Tunes. So you have 20 years of these kids not growing up with Bugs and Daffy and, you know, Elmer Fudd and what's some, like I'm sorry, like I don't think I'd be the fan of art, or as well-rounded as an individual if I hadn't grown up with Looney Tunes. I'll give you a perfect example. I'm in high school, we're reading of Mice and Men. And the Lenny with the hey George, you know, comes up and I'm like, oh my God, I know exactly what this is. Looney Tunes was parroting and making fun of Mice and Men. Whole life I didn't realize that until I was in high school reading of Mice and Men. You know, a lot of my classical music knowledge, Flight of the Bumblebees, you know, What's Opera Doc, all that stuff was introduced to me at a young age from Looney Tunes. And I think Looney Tunes is very important as a cultural touchstone. And for them, I realize they're back, and I realize they're streaming on HBO, and honestly, not that I need another streaming service, but I am legitimately thinking about getting HBO Go just for the Looney Tunes. You know, they don't even have, like, it's harder to get all the Looney Tunes on, like, box sets and stuff. I have a couple, you know. Yeah, it's hard to get all the Looney Tunes on in box sets and stuff like that, and I wish they were easier to get a hold of. I have some of the box sets. I have one of the really big ones. Even that doesn't have everything. Not a big fan of some of the newer stuff. I haven't watched that much of it, but just the idea of Elmer Fudd not having guns, you know, stuff like that kind of bothers me. It's like he's an archetype, the hunter. You know, Elmer Fudd didn't always need a gun. I mean, he had a spear in What's Opera Doc, but you're limiting the character by saying he can't have a weapon, or you know, you're limiting the what he could do to Bugs Bunny theoretically within the confines of the story. You are limiting, and that I'm not a fan of. You know, it's just I'm also not like one of these conservative assholes who's like, well, they're taking away the guns from the... No. I think people are underestimating children. I watched Looney Tunes my whole life. I saw Bugs Bunny smoke. I saw Daffy Duck smoke. I saw Fred Flintstone smoke. And not once in my entire life have I ever picked up a cigarette. So I honestly think they're underestimating kids. And that's a shame, because kids are smarter, and they deserve smarter content that doesn't talk down to them or insult their intelligence. Now, that's just my opinion. You're more than welcome to disagree with me. I appreciate any and all kind of, I don't want to say disagreements, but I'm a fan of debate. So you're more than welcome to tell me I'm wrong, but as we all know, I'm actually very, very right. Oh shit, this pen is... Well, great. My pen blew up. I've never actually had that happen to me. See, it blew up. The pen blew up. So, but yeah, if you're a fan of Looney Tunes, if you're a fan of noir content, check out FlatFoot McGee. I go back and forth on the whole should he smoke, should he not smoke. I mean, it's a staple of all classic films of the era. Sometimes it just looks cool, but at the same time, I understand why people are tweaked about smoking. Again, I never smoked. I watched cartoon characters smoke my whole life. Never once picked up a cigarette. I think it's insulting to intelligence of your audience to say, well, just because my character smokes, they're going to be influenced to smoking. That's not true. People can differentiate characters' good traits and their bad traits. Eventually I'll get around to drawing a couple of PSAs, though, anti-smoking PSAs with the character. But I hope you enjoy FlatFoot McGee. Hope you enjoyed this sketch video. We do one a week. Please like, subscribe. Patreon.com/Destiny Comics. Both the D and the C are capitalized in Destiny Comics. The only thing I ask for is $1. All my posts, which are daily except for Saturday, so you get 6 posts a week, are completely free. Only thing I ask is you just put $1 in the hat or whatever you want to donate. And for that you get a pinup photo on Monday, a podcast on Tuesday, a sketch cover video on Wednesday, a different sketch on Thursday, a photo from a convention on Friday, no post on Saturday, and Sunday is webcomic a day. So you get a comic on Sunday. And that comic is usually my political comics, although I'm toying with the idea of doing something a little different. I don't know if I will. Right now I just want to get the schedule down and get things out before I start tweaking with it. So 6 posts a week. All I'm asking for is $1 a hat, or $1 in the hat. So thank you. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe. Tell your friends. Hope you enjoyed it.